They told you the story, but they didn't tell you the truth. Every mystery leaves a record.
A man
Find it here.
is found slumped on a wooden bench outside a noisy election tavern in Baltimore. His clothes don't fit. His eyes are glassy, confused. When someone asks his name, he whispers something strange. Reynolds. No one around him knows who Reynolds is, but the dying man they're staring at is not a stranger. It's Edgar Allan Poe, the man who wrote some of the darkest stories in American literature. The author of The Raven, found delirious in the street, wearing someone else's clothes. 4 days later, he would be dead. And nearly 2 centuries later, no one can explain exactly how it happened. Walker is heading toward a tavern called Gunner's Hall, but something stops him. A man is lying in the street. His body is limp, his face pale, and his hair is matted with sweat. He looks sick, or drunk, or worse. Walker leans closer. The man's eyes suddenly open. They're wild, disoriented. Walker realizes something unsettling. The stranger is wearing cheap, ill-fitting clothes. The coat is rough, the trousers are baggy. Nothing about the outfit looks like it belongs to a respected writer. Then, the man murmurs his name. Poe. Walker freezes. Could this really be Edgar Allan Poe? Just days earlier, Poe had been traveling through the East Coast, supposedly heading from Richmond to Philadelphia. Friends expected him to arrive safely, but somehow he had ended up here in Baltimore, half-conscious, dressed like a stranger. What happened between those cities would become one of the greatest mysteries in literary history. Walker rushes Poe to Washington College Hospital. Doctors immediately notice something is wrong. Poe isn't drunk, he isn't injured, but he's not thinking clearly either. He drifts in and out of consciousness, muttering strange words, and calling out that same name again and again. Reynolds, Reynolds. Who was Reynolds? A friend? An enemy? A hallucination? No one knows. Even stranger, every time the doctors try to ask Poe what happened, he becomes agitated, almost frightened. It's as if he's trying to remember something and failing, or trying not to remember at all. Over the next 4 days, Poe's condition worsens. Heavily. He trembles. His mind drifts between panic and silence. The physician treating him, John Joseph Moran, later claims Poe spent his final hours in deep distress. At one point, Poe suddenly sits upright in bed, his eyes widen, and he cries out, "Lord, help my poor soul." Those would be the last recorded words of one of America's greatest writers. On October 7th, 1849, Edgar Allan Poe is dead. He is only 40 years old. But the real mystery begins after his death. Because when investigators look into the case, nothing makes sense. First mystery, the clothes. When Poe left Richmond days earlier, witnesses saw him wearing a black coat and formal travel clothes, the kind a gentleman writer would wear. But the clothes found on his body in Baltimore were cheap, worn, and clearly belonged to someone else. Why would Poe be dressed like a different man? Had he been robbed, kidnapped, or forced into disguise? No one could explain it. Then there's the location where Poe was discovered. Gunner's Hall wasn't just a tavern. It was also a polling station during elections. And October 3rd, the day Poe was found, was Election Day in Baltimore. That detail would later lead investigators toward one of the strangest theories ever proposed. A brutal political crime known as cooping. In the 1800s, gangs sometimes kidnapped people off the street, forced them to drink alcohol or drugs, disguised them in different clothes, and made them vote multiple times at different polling locations. Victims were often beaten, drugged, and abandoned when they were no longer useful. Could Poe have been one of them? If so, it might explain everything. The strange clothing, the confusion, the location near a polling station. But there's a problem. No witness ever confirmed Poe was part of such a scheme, and no gang was ever charged. So the theory remained just that, a theory. Other explanations soon appeared. Some doctors believed Poe died from alcohol poisoning, but that theory also has holes. Friends who saw him shortly before his trip said Poe had recently sworn off drinking. In fact, he was reportedly sober during the final weeks of his life. Even the hospital doctor said Poe didn't smell strongly of alcohol. So if it wasn't alcohol, what was it? Another theory, rabies. In the 1990s, medical researchers re-examined the symptoms described in the original reports. Delirium, sweating, fear of water, sudden mood shifts. Those symptoms could match rabies infection. But there's no record of Poe ever being bitten by an animal. No wound, no report, nothing. And rabies victims usually experience severe muscle spasms, which Poe apparently didn't show. So that theory also begins to crumble. Others have proposed darker possibilities: brain tumor, carbon monoxide poisoning, murder. Some historians even suspect political violence tied to Baltimore's chaotic election culture of the 1840s. But without a medical autopsy, which was never performed, the truth vanished the moment Poe died. His medical records were later lost. The hospital where he died was demolished, and nearly everyone involved eventually passed away.
Love mystery and true crime? Subscribe to The Hidden Record, turn on notifications, and comment your theory.
Leaving behind only fragments. A man found in borrowed clothes. A mysterious name whispered in delirium. A journey that should have taken a few hours, but somehow ended in death. And one haunting question: what really happened to Edgar Allan Poe during those missing days? In a strange twist of fate, the man who invented some of literature's greatest mysteries may have become one himself. Even today, historians still argue about the final days of Edgar Allan Poe. Was he kidnapped, drugged, a victim of crime, or did something far stranger happen in the shadows of Baltimore in 1849? The truth might have died with him, and like many of Poe's own stories, the ending remains unfinished.